let's jump right into this. Really, I think what you guys have seen is the last probably 3 weeks. It's getting you into this mindset of, we talked a little bit about reflecting back on 2020 because we're not fully recovered from 2020 and the impact. I've gone through the things that I believe you should have been doing before 2020 that successful businesses are doing. And then I want to continue to tell you now to break down these things that I would recommend you start doing now. It's December of 2020. It's not, okay, in 2021, we're going to start this. It's, no, what do we do now? So let's keep that conversation going. You guys know the patient life cycle. I talked about it last week. I shared it with some people, yet I want to go a little deeper into why the patient life cycle. So, right? So you say, that's great, Jerry. I know you talked about it's necessary, right, in this understanding this business. So let me just lay this out for you today. And again, if you want a copy of my patient life cycle so you guys have some context around what I'm talking about, then feel free to type in below that you can just type in life cycle or that you want the life cycle, and I will message it to you because it's sitting on my desktop. So I'm happy to do that. So the patient life cycle is defined as every interaction and touch point that your potential patient, because it includes marketing, has with your company during their journey with your company. Understanding, so here we go at the highest level. Understanding your patient's life cycle allows you then to create the patient experience that you want them to have. So see the connection here? Patient experience and patient life cycle are not the same thing. You must understand your patient's life cycle is the physical, right? It's all the physical stuff. It's the phone calls, it's the walking into the clinic, it's the conversations, it's the emails, it's everything, right? So it's the physical interactions. What's funny is a lot of this you can't control, right? You can't choose how people engage you. You can just give them the options, right? And give them more options and then likely find more people engaging. So that's what I say when you can't necessarily impact or change your patient's life cycle. As I like to tell people, people are going through a life cycle in your company, and they are having an experience, whether you know it or you've created it or not. So if I understand the life cycle, which is really physical and some of it I can't change, right? I can then create my patient's experience, which is fully under your control. Because once I understand my patient's life cycle, what that means is I understand these interactions and touch points from, let's just say, right? Because you can have multiple entry points into your business. And this is why I say you must understand your patient's life cycle, right? So where all the way potential patients come in, right? Phone calls, walk-ins, emails, web forms, whatever it is. Once we know this and we understand these touch points, we can start to build the systems that will allow us to create an experience that we want our potential patients, our clients, our customers to have throughout their journey, the patient life cycle, with our business, right? So that is really, in the first 4 minutes, that is it. That's the key. If I understand my patient client life cycle within my business, then I can create an experience for them that I want to create. And now let's go one deeper, because I think this is really important as we head into 2021. So it's great to talk client life cycle and patient experience, and you go, yeah, I get it. I'll work on that later. And I'm like, no, it's the foundation for your patient and business success. Remember, we cannot have business success in this world without client, customer, patient success. When your patients are successful, right, then your business reaps from that. It's financial, it's referrals, it's everything, right? So once the patient is successful, then my business is successful. The only way I can create true patient success, yet again, is through understanding my patient's life cycle and creating an experience for these people that will move them down a path to patient success. Once I understand my patient's life cycle, once I start to want to build out the systems to create this patient success, then it makes me look at this patient life cycle deeper and deeper, right? So then it's not just what's going on the phone call. It's what happens after I hang up the phone call. What's the next step? So it forces you, in a good way, I say forces because forced me. Forces you in a good way to go, what's the next step? It also forces you to go back and go, wait a minute, what did I collect on that first phone call that needs to continue to move through this person's life cycle with them? Then all of a sudden, when you start doing that, you're like, wow, this is a big daunting task. And then you go, wait a minute, you take a step back and you take a look at this patient life cycle and you realize there are 4 phases of your patient's life cycle, right? And I think it's just about true for any company, right? There's a lot of books over there talking about this stuff. You find that you can break this life cycle into phases. And now all of a sudden, again, it's how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. It allows you to attack your patient life cycle from the beginning and start to do the things within these phases so people can move to the next phase, right? Because people will be in your attraction or your marketing phase. Then you want them to move into the next phase. I call that phase 1. Then you want them to move into phase 2, which is actual engagement with your company, right? That's the sales phase. As they move through this sales phase, right, we then move them into phase 3 or the retention phase. Now, what's cool is once I map out these phases, because here's the big takeaway. Once you understand the phases, now you can start to build out accountabilities. Now you can put together ownership. And this is missing hugely in the businesses I work with. They don't understand the accountabilities and who has ownership of these phases, of these steps of their patient's life cycle. And then this is when all the bad things happen, right? This is when people need customer service. You guys have heard me talk about this before. Customer service is reactive. And if you need a customer service department, if you need to train people in customer service, it means you don't understand your patient's life cycle. Because if you understood your patient's life cycle, which is proactive, then you decrease the need for a customer service department, because customer service waits for bad things to happen. If you understand your patient's life cycle, you prevent the bad things from happening because you understand every touch point. What needs to happen next? What information needs to be carried down from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, right? It's interesting. And let me give you an example of information. Once I understood my patient's life cycle, information that needs to flow. And this may sound simple to most people, yet you need to understand most people are not doing this. And when you break it down, right, I did some posts this week about building relationships in your business. If you don't understand your patient life cycle, then you're not building true relationships in your business. It's a coin flip. Oh, look at all these happy patients. I'm like, where's all the people that didn't schedule? Where's all the people that dropped off? Where's all the people that didn't complete a plan of care, right? If your only focus is on the positive, I guarantee you there are some, and by the way, negatives aren't bad, right? The positive is a complete a plan of care. The negative would be a drop-off. Drop-offs are going to happen. The question is, why do they happen, right? What percentage? What's an acceptable amount? You can't know any of that till you understand your patient's life cycle, okay? So what I was saying was, if you understand the phases, and I want to give you an example, and then you understand the ownership, so who is accountable for that phase, right? Ownership of phase 2, after someone contacts or connects with the company and the sell phase starts, ownership is your front desk sales team or your front desk team. Now, let me give you an example of information flowing through this patient life cycle that will help you, again, if you understand this, then you do this, right? If someone sees something in your marketing, if someone finds you somewhere during the attraction phase, right? If someone hears something about you, I would argue early on in the sales cycle, the most important thing you could do is find out what they saw, what they heard, what they learned about you. Whatever they saw, they heard, they learned about you is why they chose to engage with you and move this possible relationship or this relationship forward. And it is baffling to me because then if someone tells you why they engage with you, then they're telling you how and what you need to consider and what you need to do to be successful with them in this relationship, right? So if you do that, and you collect that information and you understand the connectedness of the business, then you can create patient success, start to create patient success on that first phone call, on the first email, on the first web form. What the bulk of people do, right? So by the way, secret callers are a great way to I tell everybody by the end of a secret caller, I know if someone understands their patient life cycle or not. Asking me if I have a referral is not understanding how we connected. Less than 50% of the businesses, think about this, less than 50% of the businesses ask me, right? How did you come about to call us? And then once someone says I was on your website, you need to ask that next question. What is it you saw? What is it you read that got you to call us? Another example, it's so funny how people get so excited about a word of mouth referral. Oh, my neighbor, Bill Smith, is an old patient of yours, told me I needed to call you guys. Everybody gets so excited. They write down word of mouth, Bill Smith, and they keep talking. I'm like, wait a minute. You have to ask the follow-up question. So, Jerry, that's awesome. Bill Smith told you about us. If you don't mind me asking, what is it he said to you that got you to call us? Well, that little chunk of information, right, is why they chose you. Think about that for a second. It's that simple. They chose you not because Bill Smith was a customer of yours. They chose you because something came out of Bill Smith's mouth that made them call you. You must find that out. So again, right, if we understand the connectedness, we understand what it means to have patient success, then you will understand why you must have that information when your front desk hangs that phone up or gets done with that email or gets done with that walk-in or gets ready to call that fax referral. Because then that's the information that flows downhill with them. Those are expectations. Those are expectations that were set. And if you don't ask them what their expectations are, and that's part of it, right? Then then you're rolling the dice. So that's one way where understanding your patient's life cycle in your business, which is understanding the connectedness of all the touch points and understanding the connectedness of your business. Because I'm going to tell you right now, in 4 months when your patient leaves happy and you check them off as patient success, it started and it was amplified and it was leveraged on the first phone call. And the more you amplify it and leverage it further upstream, because you understand the connectedness, then the easier patient success becomes. Nothing ruins a relationship more than that bill that comes like a month after they're finished their course of care, right? Relationship dead in the water. Patient success, nope, right? And I'm here to tell you, I've done this enough with enough people, including myself. That final bill, the expectation for that final bill, the expectation is set before they ever arrive. That they'll probably get a bill at the end, that they may have some questions, and that you must follow up with us and call us because we'll help you with that final bill. That conversation alone will save you thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and will create more patient success than not, right? So there's another example. Once you understand the connectedness of your business, you understand that final bill was not a billing issue. You understand it was an expectations issue that could be managed when? On the first phone call in phase 2. That's owned by the front desk, right? I could sit here and give you guys examples all day long, but I don't want to stay in the weeds on this. I want to come back out and go, once you do this, and once you understand the patient's life cycle within your business, you can then create the patient experience you want. You can start to insert the systems into your patient's life cycle that will create the experience that you want your client, customer, patient to have. Once you understand your patient life cycle, you can break it down into phases, which makes it easier to, right, bite off chunks and build out systems in order, or understand where things are not happening. That's another thing. Once your patient life cycle is in place, once you build out the systems, once you create this patient experience, it makes it easier to solve problems like cancels, like billing problems, like no-shows in your business, right? Because you understand the phases and you understand the ownership and you understand where the breakdown can be. Then and only then can you truly make the big changes to your metrics, right? Revenue, NPS scores, net promoter score, right? Profit, cancel rates go down, drop-offs go down, no-shows go down, right? Arrival rate goes up. Completed plans of care go up. There's no better way to drive your business. There's no better way to create greater business success than more completed plans of care, which means people aren't dropping off, which means people aren't canceling. All of those equate directly to business success. Why? It means you're getting paid. It means you're making more money. It means you're spending less money to fill the schedule. There's so many directions we can go with this. So again, if you understand your patient life cycle, you can start to look at the patient experience you want to create. You can start to chunk it out into the phases and start to build those phases. Right? You understand who owns the steps, right? What systems need to go on in those steps, what information needs to be gathered in those steps, what information needs to be carried forward. You need to set up their business metrics of success for each phase. And the systems within those phases should help you drive those metrics in the right direction, right? Then, it's funny, it's not till you map out your patient's life cycle do you understand the true business metrics of success for your front desk. And actually your team, right? I've gone through this before. Visits and units billed are not metrics of success. No one, right? Metrics of those things, right? They're baked into the company. You're going to be looking at those, but those aren't things you're holding people accountable for because those are business metrics. Those aren't patient success metrics. Once you map out your patient life cycle, you'll realize, again, that all these phases have business metrics of success, completed plans of care, less cancels, less drop-offs, right? Those are the things we hold people accountable for. Those have a bigger impact than visits. Visits, right? Visits is a metric you use to calculate other things. You don't hold people responsible for it. You must understand the visits in your business. You must understand it so you can come up with cost per visit and things like that. Once you put together that patient life cycle, then you can start to chunk it out so you can build that patient experience, so you know who's accountable for each step, so you know the metrics associated with those phases, so you can look at any time and know, this is the other beauty, you can look at anybody, any client, customer, patient at any time and know if they're moving towards patient success before they even arrive. Think about that. That's what gets missed so much. Everybody waits till someone arrives and thinks this is where their life cycle starts. I'm like, I can set you up for greater business success before the patient ever arrives. Now, mind you, we have to continue that and there still have to be deliverables. But why would you wait till someone arrives in the clinic to set them and you up for success? So get that patient life cycle. If you want a copy of my patient life cycle, just comment patient life cycle. I will drop it into your messenger. Happy to do that. And it'll give you an idea of the mindset. And patient life cycle is big and broad, right? It's when you break down those phases that you really start to see it. But you got to start to chunk it out. And then you just pull it out and start inserting the systems, right? That you hear me talk about phase 2 all the time. Fine tuning that, right? Phone calls, emails, touches, texts, mail, right? Welcome calls, not appointment reminders, right? Until that person steps foot and gets checked into the clinic, phase 2 hasn't ended, right? So if someone's scheduled 10 days out, what are you doing? What are you doing during that phase? If someone's scheduled in 24 hours, what are you doing in that phase to set them up for success? Especially in network clinics. I work on this all the time, right? People expect their benefits or their costs. I'm like, cool. If we know that, and we know that's part of the journey, then we can manage a patient who's been scheduled in 24 hours, no different than someone who's scheduled out 7 days, 10 days. And they both will be set up for success. All right. Cheers all.